Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our review of the Aosun M815. This is an 8-inch Android tablet that has pretty middle-of-the-road specs, including 2 gigs of RAM, along with a 720p display that's IPS, and also has a MediaTek quad-core processor. So not anything out of the ordinary. However, it is relatively affordable. It comes in at under $100. It sometimes goes on sale for even less, and you can find it directly on Amazon. So those are the highlights. It might make for a good, maybe cheap tablets for kids, or as a quick on-the-go tablet for cases where you don't want to bring something larger or more expensive. It's relatively portable and lightweight, and should be enough for media streaming as well as for light web browsing, things like that, where you don't need the most powerful processor to handle those type of tasks. So these specs are printed here. Again, it runs on Android version 7.0 out of the box, and it has 32 gigs of built-in storage as well. There's also a warranty sticker that you can scratch off to see if this is an authentic product. Alright, so inside of this cardboard box, we should have just the tablet itself. It comes with just this one color, I believe. And down below, we also have the accessories, which includes a micro USB cable for charging. So yes, it's not using USB Type-C. Again, it's a little bit dated now, but it is a budget tablet at the end of the day, meant to compete with things like the Amazon Fire tablets and other low-cost options like the iPad mini, so on and so forth. There's a charger brick, and there's a quick start guide / user manual. Taking a look at the tablet itself, as you can see here, it does have a very kind of symmetrical design. It does also have a built-in screen protector here that we're going to peel off. And overall, it reminds me a lot of something like a Nexus or a Fire tablet, funny enough, just because the dimensions are so rounded off and kind of squarish. It does feel actually pretty well constructed. There is no aluminum here, but it is coated in a layer of soft touch rubber, which makes the tablet very grippy, easy to hold, and it also doesn't slide around on a surface or a desk. Overall, it definitely has a very clean overall presentation. The edges here has access to the volume rocker. There's a power switch. We're just going to tap on this for a few seconds to see if there's any juice. And the front also does have access to a webcam for video chatting. The back has a 5 megapixel camera for snapping quick images. There's also access to a 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, micro SD card for expanding the built-in memory, micro USB for charging the tablet. It will take about 2 hours to charge, and on the back there's also the speaker, which is in a bit of an unfortunate placement. I do wish that it would be in the front or at least on the sides, but it is what it is at this price. There's also this design by Aosun in China, and the Chinese name is Little Love. The tablet's name in China, I believe, is V5, although we have the M815 as the branding for in the States. Overall, again, not a bad looking tablet, especially at such a low price point. And as a quick size comparison, here we have the similar 8-inch Lenovo Tab 3 P8. It's the same size also as the Tab 4 P8, another very popular low-cost Android tablet, although the Lenovo Tab series is about $100 more expensive. It may start at around $170, $200, and goes up to $300 depending on the configuration, versus $99 for this. So it makes sense that the Tab P8 also is more powerful, has a better screen, so on and so forth. But you can tell that the dimensions are fairly similar. Overall thickness is also about the same. Construction in terms of materials also about the same, with the soft touch rubber material on the back. So here we have the tablet booted up for the first time. I'm going to tap on OK, and it seems like the screen itself is actually fairly responsive, but there's definitely a little bit of lag that you can notice. Animations aren't as silky smooth as you would find on, let's say, a Snapdragon powered tablet, especially compared to high-end phones and the like. But as a pretty typical MediaTek processor, it still does a respectable job. The viewing angles actually seem to be decent. However, it's not a very bright panel. Now, I'm not sure if we have the brightness set all the way up or not, but under some indoor lighting, especially if you're outdoors, you can see it reflects light very easily, and it's pretty easy to get reflections on the display as well as fingerprints. So this is definitely not the most readable panel in terms of brightness, and not attracting that much fingerprints. We see here that it does have an accelerometer, so you can rotate the tablet and use this in this horizontal view. In terms of the operating system here, it looks like it's a very clean vanilla or stock install of Android, which is nice to see. Not too much bloatware going on. In fact, everything that you'll find here are the standard Google utilities, including YouTube, Gmail, Google Drive, so on and so forth. So you won't find too many ads or bloatware built right on in. So if we go into settings here and very quickly verify the tablet's profiles, we do have Wi-Fi in addition to Bluetooth. There's no GPS, but indeed we are running on Android version 7.0, as you can see here, which is reasonably up-to-date nougat for a low-cost Android tablet, especially since it's a vanilla build of Android with these virtual keys on the bottom. But at the same time, it's not running on the latest Android 8.0 Oreo. That's just something to really quickly keep in mind. Everything seems to be optimized pretty well as a tablet. You'll see that text and fonts are pretty small compared to on a cell phone. So that's really meant for you to use this kind of like a computer, holding it with two hands. You can drag down on different parts of the display on the top for the notifications, and you can see again a little bit of choppiness. So let's check out the camera performance first. Again, we do have two cameras built on in, and the rear camera here again is rated at roughly 5 megapixels. I believe this might be a fixed focus camera, so you aren't able to tap to focus, but it does give you a very stock experience. Location services, and then auto shake face detection, EIS, electronic image stabilization. There's no optical, of course, but you can also toggle between microphone settings, video quality, things like that. So if I tap on this image that I just took over here with the HDR mode activated, you can see that the image is actually better than expected, especially if you crop in and look at the kind of details. It's actually done a respectable job considering that it's a fixed focus lens. So really not bad, because these cameras tend to do better if you're capturing landscape shots, outdoor environments, but this is actually again more than usable to post on social media. You can long hold on the center key here to activate Google Assistant, and that brings up the smart assistant for again searching. Just like with Alexa, you can ask it to tell you the weather, to tell you news, things like that. This is a multitasking key, and again with 2 gigs of RAM, it handles some light multitasking without too many problems. I can also long hold on this multitasking key to begin a secondary app if it's supported. So for instance, let's say this Google search, and so now we can have 2 different programs running, and on this larger screen, 8 inches compared to a regular phone, we have of course more canvas, more area to work with for things like multitasking. I can be browsing the web, and on here I can be watching a video, but you can tell how here that there's definitely a bit of lag and choppiness, especially as it's trying to think and process things for the first time, but not bad. Once it's fully loaded in terms of web pages, if you have a video playing, it's going to continue fairly smoothly. It just takes a few seconds for the processor to think first. I can also change the size of the screen, and you can see that it's actually keeping up without too many problems. Alright, so if we get rid of this Google Assistant app, one other thing I want to show you that it's capable of doing is actually minimizing the screen. So down below here there's an icon that I can tap on, and that will make this into a small app, kind of like a card. That's a pretty cool feature that's built into stock Android, of course, but it gives me more of a mobile-like view. So I'm glad to see these optimizations working even on a budget tablet. It does make the experience feel like you're working on a real computer as opposed to just another smartphone. So it's nice features built in. After about a few hours of use, now it does get a little bit warm, especially on the tablet's brand area. So if you're holding it here, it's not uncomfortable, but it just get a little bit warm, slightly hot. So gripping it near the edges does make it feel a little bit better. In terms of bezel size, you can see that it's not the smallest in the world, but having these 2 edges to hold onto also makes it pretty comfortable even if you're gaming or browsing the web or watching videos. So ergonomics are also fairly good. Alright, so let's take a look at the web browsing experience next. We have just the standard Chrome browser built in. We also have the ability to take a look at the keyboard here, very stock experience. The screen supports up to 5 fingers for multi-touch. Here we have the full version of the New York Times loading up in the browser. It's a good benchmark since it's a very complex page with lots of videos as well as ads and elements that will challenge lower end hardware. On here, it actually really isn't that bad. Yeah, it takes a few seconds for the page to completely render, but afterwards, you can see that text and images still look fairly sharp on the display. All right, so pausing the sample there, overall the speaker quality isn't very good. It's quite tinny and it gets distorted at higher volumes. Also, it lacks bass. But the one thing it's good at is it packs actually surprising volume. You can turn up loudness to a pretty surprising extent, and it fills up smaller spaces in rooms actually very well. So you're not going to get the best audio experience on here also because it's on the back. If you set it on a desk, it will get muffled up. However, if you are playing back a quick song or two, if you're listening to radio, it actually makes for an okay experience, a passable experience. Really, I would recommend using Bluetooth headphones or connecting it to a 3.5mm jack to improve on the audio experience. A good amount of apps, about 10 or so, and it's using up less than 1 gig of RAM. So it seems like RAM management also seems to be reasonably strong on this unit. So that's a good thing. You can open up many tabs in the browser, you can open up a few games, files, and it should still handle it without too many problems. When it comes to the overall storage, we have about 25 gigs right out of the box. So you know that roughly 7 gigs of that is taken up partly by the operating system, partly by the apps. So you do have a percentage of that remaining for you to install your own programs with. And you can always install an SD card if you want to load up larger media files like videos for playing back MP4 videos, things like that. When it comes to battery life and performance, it also is decent. I wouldn't say it's outstanding, but it does last you for a few days at least before you need to recharge it again, as you can see here. And I've been using this already for a few hours now, just quickly testing over some of the features, and I still have roughly 80% of the charge remaining, which isn't bad. The other apps on here, again, are very much stock, so there's no customization at all when it comes to utilities like the clock, timer, as well as alarm, and there's also access to an FM radio, and there's also a voice recorder which makes use of the built-in microphone. The microphone is okay. When I did a test Skype call with it previously, the other caller said that my voice sounded fine, although at times it got a little bit muffled sounding at higher volumes if I was speaking too close. So definitely not a noise canceling mic like you would find on a flagship phone, but it works for some quick, let's say, note. Performance during gaming is also really average. Again, here in 2018, a quad-core entry-level MediaTek processor along with 2 gigs of RAM is now considered, again, entry-level in terms of the processing power. So if you're playing back the most demanding titles like Asphalt 8, you may have to wait up to 30 seconds in my testing for some more complex games to completely work. But afterwards, it still is playable, just, again, not on the most demanding graphic settings that you may find on, let's say, a Snapdragon 800 series device. But again, most of the games and titles can still be run on here. So that's the AOSYN M815, also known as the V5, a 8-inch Android tablet that is priced affordably at $99. It doesn't offer the best performance in the world, but it does have a relatively sleek and clean design, and it offers good value for the money if you're on a budget. It does perform better than the typical, generic $50 or $70 tablets that you can find also on Amazon, just because it has 2 gigs of RAM, which is more than the standard 1 gig that you'll find at that particular price. At the same time, if you pay a little bit more, you can also find something like the Lenovo Tab series, which will give you faster performance, better screens, but again, you do have to pay about $100 more to get that. And of course, even more expensive than that would be something like an Apple iPad or an iPad mini, which is more of a premium mini tablet. But again, if this as a backup tablet, as a tablet for students, for consuming media and watching videos, it definitely does a decent job. At the same time, it does face a stiff competition from the Amazon Fire tablets, as well as Insignia or Best Buy's own brand of tablets, which can arguably give you slightly better value because the price points can be a little bit lower if you shop around, and they offer very similar internals and performance. So thanks for watching this video here at OS Reviews. This was the AOSYN M815, also known as the V5 Android tablet.